Welcome back, everyone, to the T.R.O.N podcast, the Randomness of Nothing. This is your host, Rashad Woods. Today, I have a very special guest today. Serial entrepreneur, has done over 10 startups, is the current CEO of HOA.com. So for people who do have one, you really want to listen to this one. Brandon Barham, thank you very much, sir.
Rashad, my pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
I really appreciate your time. And you have a very wonderful and compelling story. I saw that you got into the mortgage business at about 24, 22, when you were very young, and then you decided to make the next stage in life to make a leap financially, and you've reaped the rewards of it, starting several businesses. So please give a little background about yourself.
Well, yeah. So at 22, I found out that you don't have to be married to have a kid, and I had a child at 22, and I was a single dad at 24,
Right.
and so then I got in the mortgage business right after that, and it helped take my income from $20,000 a year to $200,000 a year
Wonderful.
within 18 months. And
Wonderful.
so I've just been on a mission ever since to help as many people as possible kind of learn those secrets. We call it Raving Referrals. So that's what I teach. I have a book series called Raving Referrals.
I saw that.
Yeah. And it's just all about real relationships in the real world and how do you partner with people that are already serving your perfect prospect. So from a business sense, it's about relationships and earning people's trust and becoming the solution to the challenges that their clients face.
Right. And so I had a previous guest, my first guest, actually, a very successful businessman from Toronto. He said, all business is serving problems for people for profit, right? And when people actually, like, it was a very simple, and shout out to Nikki Ballou, who did that on my first episode. But when people actually get that concept, because either selling to people, referrals, it gets kind of nasty and people start to kind of feel like I don't want to say sleazy feeling, but it gets kind of, people have a bad image or a bad taste in their mouth when they think of that. When in reality, the best referrals are the ones that are consistent business, people that are known, people that provide a high value service and then become a part of your community.
Yeah, we teach serve, don't sell. And I think that's where the challenge is. Like when you're talking about getting nasty, I think that's when people are in their head rather than in their heart.
Right.
They're focused on selling. They're focused on what am I going to get from this?
Unquestionably.
And that's the wrong way to approach it, right? It's all about what can you give? Who can you serve? Who can you help? And when you come from that space, people can feel it. I say the last thing you want to do is stink of commission breath, right? You don't want to pitch off people so that you, as soon as you meet somebody at a networking event, you're like pitching them and it's all about what you do.
Right.
No.
Right.
Take a beat, pause, and really be curious, right? Really look to be interested rather than interesting. And when we're interested in others, we find out about the other people, we connect with them where they're at, and then we're in that service spirit.
That's a very interesting analogy too, because, especially with the way social media, the way that everything's shown me, everything's got to be, up front in your face, when in reality, a skill of listening and actually intaking information is almost a lost trait, because people want to be first. They want to have, they want to make an immediate post. They want to make, even if you go on LinkedIn, right? Like, it's just like you're bombarded with, messages that people are sending to you privately. And, you're just like, yo, man, like, slow your roll a bit. Like, at least do a solid intro of how are you doing? It's the weird things, the nuances that sometimes haven't been learned.
Yeah, it's all about them. Again, that's what I call pitch slapping. I get it every day on LinkedIn, like to your point,
oh my goodness,
where I've never met these people. They reach out, they want to connect. I'll accept their connection request. And then before they've ever asked or offered anything about me, it's all about them and what they can do. And I'm like, okay,
right.
Well, I just ignore them.
You have to. You have to.
I think most people do.
You have to. It's because, and I'm just, like I said, I'm not even, anywhere near in your stratosphere. So I can only imagine the messages that you're getting bombarded with. So just briefly, tell us a little bit about HOA.com. I was listening to a previous interview that you had with that real estate agent from South Carolina. And I love how you said you had community events, that you were trying to redefine, the stress points in people's life. And ironically, I had it completely wrong. When you said the first was, a death, and then the second one was divorce, and the third is home ownership, right?
Yeah, you're talking about the three most stressful things in life. Number one, death. Number two, divorce. Number three, buying a house.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I was
we're on this mission of unity through community, right? We believe that people feel more disconnected now than ever.
Right.
And we all want to belong. We want to feel connected. And so part of what we're doing with HOA.com is over half of all homeowners in America live in homeowner associations, but they're kind of dysfunctional, decentralized, disconnected. And so our goal is to help these families connect in the neighborhoods that they live in. We've got a tech platform. We're building kind of a Nextdoor meets Angie's List meets Zillow. And then in addition to that, we help those communities really do events that bring the neighbors together, whether it's an ice cream social, community barbecue,
Right.
kickball tournament.
Right.
We just want to help everybody connect and really get to know their neighbors and feel connected in their neighborhood.
I thought that was really interesting too, because when I was listening, you were talking about the mortgage lender and the real estate agent, got that 13-year-old to bring the event together. And it was like, okay, let's just break it down to basics. Then you said nobody was on their cell phone. Everything was really, community based because, people, unfortunately, it's not like what you see on TV where people actually have time to have long conversations with the person across the street from them, get to know each other. I mean, heck, I'm guilty of it. I couldn't tell you who lives 3 doors down from me. I really couldn't. And it's not, it's sad, right? And you're just like, you find out when you come, when you go, and you never actually stop and introduce yourself. There's a skit from a well-known comedian, and he's an actor, and his name eludes me, but the whole skit was about when your doorbell rang back in the day versus when your doorbell rings now. It was
Yeah,
right before it was
totally.
before it was a joyous occasion. Now people are like, who the heck is that, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it's true. I had a realtor that texted me this weekend. They were all excited because they said, we just held our first ice cream social in our community. They said, we think every kid from the neighborhood came by,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it was mostly moms in the photos that I saw. I'm sure there were some dads too.
Right.
But it just gave people a reason to come out, meet their neighbors.
Right.
And an event like
Wonderful.
that costs $50 or
Right.
so to put it on. And this was a real estate agent. They want to become trusted in their neighborhood. They
Correct.
want to be known, liked, trusted, and hired. And so they use this type of event to really add value to the community.
Right.
And again, serve rather than sell.
That's beautiful. So, how did it actually go from your mortgage career to
Yeah.
HOA.com? You obviously saw a gap in the market, right? So, you clearly saw, hey, man, there's a significant gap between service. So, what was the aha moment for you to start this?
Well, you're talking about a time frame of 28 years. So I did 12 years in the mortgage business. And then for the last 16 years or so, I've been building platforms, technology
Yes.
platforms to help people come together. My last one, we had over 5 million members. It was
Wonderful.
all based on referrals. And with that, what we saw is that we had a B2B platform. We had a platform to help business professionals connect with each other and win more referrals from each other,
Right.
which was great. And we exited that in 2019. And then I said, let's create a referral network specifically for professionals who serve homeowners. So that's
Right.
how we started as the Homeowner Alliance.
Right.
Along the way, we acquired the domain HOA.com, and that kind of changed our focus. We're building AI for HOAs now,
I
so
saw
there's
that.
more to it than just the community platform. But it's been an evolution. God guides us on the journey, and we learn along the way where the gaps are
Right.
and what needs to be improved. And then, like you said at the opening, we find a need and we fill it.
Right. And so, sometimes, I have a good friend who lives in an HOA, and sometimes that could be like the people avoid them, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And I'll be frank, like when you're young, and you're first buying your first house, like there's things that you don't even know. Like, so you're just trying to
that's right.
figure it all out. You may or may not have, experts or parents or that uncle who really can actually help you navigate it. You stepped in and kind of took away the dirty word of that. So what do people fear about HOAs, and what has your platform allowed people to navigate more successfully?
Yeah, great question. So the biggest three complaints that we hear about HOAs is number one, transparency. They feel like they pay a lot of money into their HOA and they're not sure what they get for
Mm-hmm.
it. And that leads to number two, which is communication. They often don't feel like they know what's going on. What's the board and the association really doing to improve our community?
Right.
And then the third area is the politics and the policing, right? Nobody wants to get fined, right, or
Right.
ticketed for having our garbage can out too long or
Marshawn Lynch.
our grass too high,
Yeah.
right? So, and a lot of that is people feel like the rules aren't evenly applied.
Right.
Like it's rules for thee, but not for me. And sometimes people feel like the president is running a fiefdom, right? The king of the community, and that's not how it works.
Right.
My wife became our president of our HOA about a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
And when she joined the board 2 years ago, the current president at that point would talk about the $400,000 that was in the community reserve account, the bank account, as her money. She would say,
Whoa.
I don't want to do that with my money.
Whoa.
And it was like, lady, this isn't your bank account, right? This belongs to the neighbors. And we're doing what's in the best interest of everyone. And so those are the issues
Right.
that we face. What we're doing is we're on a mission to elevate and improve how HOAs manage their communities. We've got tech that we're rolling out that will automate a lot of the process and take some of the human decisions out of it,
Right.
where AI is giving recommendations
Yes.
as to what's best for the community.
Hmm.
And when you have that level of automation, one of the things we're doing right now is we've been testing actually taking phone calls using AI from homeowners that call in with
Right.
questions, and the AI is able to answer those questions, which gives the homeowners the answers they need and then reduces the workload on the board or the management company. So those are a few of the things,
Beautiful.
but I get excited about this, right? My passion is
Right.
the people side of the business. So it's really about helping communities connect and people love their HOA.
Mhm.
That's the mission we're on.
Well, I thought it was interesting too when you mentioned artificial intelligence because even when you go through like a fast food window, and I try to avoid fast food, but occasionally you do, right? Because
Yeah,
and then you hear an AI bot, and there's something about though with human interaction that people miss, and we've all been at the supermarket checkout line where
yeah.
the machine doesn't read what you bought, and all you needed was two items, and now you're standing there for 10 minutes, and your stress meter is slowly going up. So how did you make sure that people who are having issues with HOA, AI is the great tool to assist and take away those phone calls, but people still have the opportunity to still talk to their board if they want that interaction. Is that where you step in as
Oh
well too?
yeah.
So how do you navigate
Well,
both worlds?
thank you. It's a great question. I think the reality is AI is still in its infancy. I built an AI platform back in 2019. That was my first
Wow.
experience. Back then, there was no Chat
Right.
GPT, there was no
Right.
APIs. We had to hire an IBM Watson engineer to come build out this AI technology. So I've
Amazing.
been in this space a long time,
Yeah,
and it's been incredible over the last 2.5 years since OpenAI released ChatGPT. It has changed the
for
world,
sure.
and it's going to continue.
Right.
I think the reality is AI is here to stay. There's no doubt about
Without
that. It's
question.
making our lives easier. And yet, we as humans crave personal connection.
Uh,
And so
right.
that's not going away. But if we can reduce the workload and automate some of these functions, and especially access to information,
Correct.
then that improves the experience for everyone involved.
Yeah, I think like a good example is somebody who's trying to buy, in an HOA in a neighborhood for the first time, where the rules, regulations, and bylaws of that set community. You may not want to take up and sit down if you got off work, you have small children. But like, listen, I'd rather just have that information readily available to me, so that way I know exactly what I'm coming into. And it can also help real estate professionals. I saw there's certifications that you have for people who are I can't speak on real estate at all when it comes to being a professional in that field, but I have to imagine the tools that you give them help them navigate that space with places that have more stringent rules and exclusionary policies of what you can and can't do to the property.
Well, yeah, 100%. So, what we've done is we have the only certification program for real
I
estate
saw that.
agents to become certified HOA
Hmm.
specialists, because there's just no training out there. And we recognized, again, a gap in the marketplace where we want to help these real estate agents guide people to good neighborhoods that are well
Right.
managed and run, rather than mismanaged communities where people don't love their HOA.
Hmm.
As a real estate professional, if over half of your listings and sales are in HOAs, you need to be an expert in
Right.
HOAs. And so it's a 4 hour online course that
Right.
people go through. They watch videos, take a test, and get certified. And then we help them on the back end with the tools to really celebrate that and share their certification. And it's just really important training for agents to know.
Hmm.
And then a buyer or seller of a home can hire an agent with confidence, knowing that this person's taken the time to really become an expert
Right.
in HOAs.
So here's my question. So you have satisfied customers, you have satisfied contractors and people who work in those communities, so that way they know exactly what they're walking into when they have to do repairs or other things like that. How has the board responded to your service? Obviously, you've had a very successful company, but was there any resistance when you first started this company and said they're taking control away from me? I'm getting bombarded with more questions that I didn't want to. When you talked about that example of the $400,000, where it's like we got to pivot to thinking that that's not yours, this is the community's.
Yeah. Yeah, look, the reality is the people business. And so some people are going to react
Mm-hmm.
defensively. Typically, what happens is when they understand that we're there to help
Mm-hmm.
them and not replace them, then they embrace it more. And usually, what happens is that an HOA board gets introduced by somebody that is a fan, and they say, hey, we should bring HOA.com here to our community. We want
Wonderful.
to empower those communities with the tools that helps everyone thrive.
That's fantastic. And the reality about it is, if you don't evolve, then eventually something's going to, go above your head. And we saw companies that didn't evolve or situations that didn't evolve. Anybody seen a Radio Shack lately? You know what I mean? Just keeping it real.
There's one next to Blockbuster. Wait, no, that's not
That
true.
graveyard, right? I think there's one Blockbuster left in like Alaska or something like that.
No, Bend, Oregon. I'm from Oregon, so
Yeah. That's the one that's left. I apologize. Yeah.
That's it. It's all good.
I saw that. That's crazy. That's nuts. It was a staple too. So,
well, it's just I think it's a museum more than anything right now. But I don't even have. You know what? I don't know. Not only do I not have a video player, we don't even have a DVD player anymore.
Not anymore.
Right? So it's all digital and streaming. And that's, to your point, the way the world evolves.
It is. And so, I was looking at Raving Referrals, and I thought that it was very interesting where, the recommendations and the courses you have. Can you talk about, the courses and what people go to be certified, and the course you offer, and how, in the book that you wrote, please?
Yeah, so we've got 4 books in the Raving Referrals series right now, and then we've got 4 more coming out this year. Raving Referrals is really the foundational work for anyone that works by referral. People that sell into businesses, 84% of B2B sales start with a referral. So if you're trying to sell to a business owner, you need somebody opening the door, advocating, championing you, and bringing you into the decision maker.
Of course.
Otherwise, it's a long slog. So we teach the 7 laws of Raving Referrals. We have a course specifically for real estate agents. This is my latest book, is Raving Referrals for Real Estate Agents. Right. And so there, what we do is we certify mostly mortgage lenders that want to teach and train rooms full of realtors on our program. So we give them turnkey curriculum. It's a 2-hour course where we walk them through a referral score quiz. We teach them the art of the because that's one of the things that most people don't know how to do, is they don't feel comfortable and confident asking for referrals. And so they don't get many referrals. Right. And so we help them shift their mind, teach them a technique and a framework where they can ask for referrals where the clients feel served, because it's really about giving and serving rather than asking for yourself.
Well, I always found it funny, obviously there's a quote that I've always loved to hear when it comes to the services that we use for free, right? Whether it's Facebook, whether it's Twitter, there's a paid version for LinkedIn, but you can still use the free version. It's always funny when it says, if it's free, you're not the customer, you're the product being sold, right? So people who are anti-selling, every time you log into something in your phone, you're being sold, something. So it's just a question of but we use that as our quote unquote entertainment or our social outlet. Every time you send a friend request, every time you send a connection, whatever the case may be, you're selling something to that platform. And so selling isn't a dirty word, right? Referrals aren't a dirty word in a greater scheme of things and everything like that, because it happens every single day. That's how commerce is created in these wonderful economies and capitalism that we have. So I think getting people out of that bad state that if I'm asking for business is not a bad thing, right?
Yeah. And again, I think it's a mindset thing. And I think we got to shift our minds. I think the reality is, when we think about why do people refer other people, it's because they want to help them, right? It's because they see that somebody's got a challenge, a need, a question, and they want to help that person find the resource that they need to succeed, or they're passionate about something. They found something that they know is going to be helpful for somebody else, and so they passionately promote it. And that's where referrals come from. And so the reality is, if somebody's feeling awkward about it, it starts right here. In business, so much of it is our mindset and how we approach things, how we view things. And when you shift again from selling to serving, then you're coming from your place of your heart, and people can feel it energetically. Our vibe attracts our tribe. And so when we're being authentic and we're serving the people that we want to, we attract more business. And everybody's excited about the process.
So when you have HOA.com, are you working with builders who are starting new locations, new communities, new community boards, and say, okay, this is the next, I have to imagine you do. So this is the next HOA community. This is coming up. Now you have a board in infancy and you're like, hey, this is a great, at the very beginning of entry into the market. Everybody's already utilizing this. You need to utilize this platform. So how's your outreach go when it comes to those emerging communities and builders and associations?
Yeah, so we're still in startup mode. We've got different phases of growth. That's our 2026 plan. It actually is the developer
Nice.
rather than the builder
Okay.
that establishes the HOA.
Okay.
So before a home is ever built, while the developer is in the process of putting in the plumbing and the electrical and everything else within that community, they're the ones that establish the HOA.
Okay.
And so our whole goal, and this again is a 2026 focus for us, is empowering that so they're communities that are powered by HOA.
Okay. Okay. And so that's, again, like I said, I don't live in one, but I'm always fascinated. I'm always thinking ahead. I'm like, do you have an app? Is that the evolution is going to be to have a mobile app?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Nice. Nice. So what about your background? Like, what did you specialize in some sort of business in your post education? How did you get into the field to begin with that it was going to be mortgage?
Yeah, I've got a marketing degree, right? I graduated from Portland State University way back in the 90s with a degree in marketing. And then my first job, I was a marketing director for an estate planning law firm. And that's when I got custody of my son. And I was looking around because once I had custody, I had already bought a house. I was, 24, I think, at that point, and I had purchased a house. But once I got custody, I couldn't afford my mortgage and the daycare bill. So I knew I had to make a change. And that's where I ultimately got into the mortgage industry.
That's fantastic. And like I said, your drive and success, for someone like yourself to reach out to me, I always pause when I see the big title CEO and it's like HOA.com. And then you see the LinkedIn page and the accomplishments. It makes me kind of stop in my tracks that people want to be on, my podcast to talk to me, because I think that the message that you sent out shows that if you write things down, like you said in your previous podcast, and put your dreams on paper, you can accomplish great things. And I thought that was wonderful advice that you gave out. And you said that yours was what, 500 pages or so? Oh, you have stuff planned out to 2050, which is crazy.
I do, yeah. So my personal goals. So what you're asking about is my goals in my life. Yeah, man, I've got them all planned out for 2050. Things I want to accomplish, achieve,
Yeah.
people I want to meet, places I want to go, just my life experiences. I had the honor and pleasure of meeting Mark Victor Hansen back when I was 34, yep. And he's the author of Chicken Soup for the Soul, for those that are old enough to remember that. He's sold over 600 million books, right? So he's the world's best-selling nonfiction author. And I met Mark because I was raising money and awareness for a Christian charity back in Portland, Oregon, kind of a Doctors Without Borders. Yeah. And so we needed a speaker. They asked me to find a keynote speaker for their big annual awards event. I knew a friend who knew Mark, and so I asked for a referral, and that's how I got connected to Mark. And when I brought Mark out, and he came and did 2 events for us that day, in fact, one of them was called Success with Integrity. And that was the event that I ran. So we had him speak at their event. And then I did my own event that night because the hotel was already paid for. The AV was already in place. Right. And his VP said, if you want to do a second event, Mark won't charge any additional speaking fee. I'm like, okay, game on, let's go. We raised enough money that day to send $1.2 million in medical supplies around the world. And so it was like so encouraging to me. But in both talks that Mark did, he challenged the audience to write down 101 goals. And I took that to heart. And so the next week I went to Hawaii with my wife and I wrote 338 goals. And it was really me sitting on the beach going, okay, Lord, what do you have for me? Why am I here? And what is this life that I want to do? And so I call it living life by design rather than life by default. I think most people don't have clarity. They don't have a vision for themselves. And the Bible says without vision, people suffer, right? And so if we create our life and put it down on paper as to what we want to achieve and experience, then magic happens and we accomplish things. And in that first 6 months, I met Bono, the lead singer of U2. Like that was one of the things I had put down on my list. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to say if anything is possible, what would I want?
150%.
Right?
150%.
If you had a magic wand or a magic lamp, what would you ask for?
You can do it.
So put those things on paper. And then the key is you've got to have a date, right, of when you hope to plan to accomplish those things. And one of the things for me is I wanted Mark Victor Hansen to write about me in a book by May 28th, 2005. So 1 year later, right, in the next year. And I'm writing this on the beach and I'm not necessarily fully believing that it'll happen, but that's what I'm wanting, right?
Exactly.
I come back, I ask Mark to be my mentor. He says yes. We've now been friends, and he's been mentoring me for 21
That's
years.
unbelievable. That's
And then
unbelievable.
about 90 days in, he calls me up one day and he says, Robert Allen and I are writing the sequel to The 1 Minute Millionaire, and it's going to be called Cracking the Millionaire Code. Would it be okay if we write about you? I'm like, oh, yeah, come on, here we go. And that book came out May 31st, 2005. It was 3 days off from my
It's
goal date
unbelievable.
that I had
Beautiful.
written down that beach.
Beautiful.
And from then, Rashad, I'm like, okay, wait, you mean I could ask for
Right.
anything?
And now, and right, because you got out of that space in your head,
Yeah.
and if you don't kick your own butt, then life will kick yours. You know what I'm saying?
Mm,
I'm
mm.
PG in that, right?
Yep, yep,
And the
yep.
reality about it is that I haven't accomplished what you've done, but I had to get out of my head to start this podcast because
Yeah.
got to the point where, and I'll tell you what really inspired me, and this is really weird, is I saw a Roku special where Keanu Reeves, arguably the world's biggest movie star, had like a 10-part series where he went around the globe and he's talking to subject matter experts. One was a sculptor, one was a guy who made his own shoe brand. And regardless, and Keanu, I love Keanu Reeves, everything about the guy. But what was fascinating is the world's biggest movie star is a geek, right? And
Yeah.
so you're
Right.
like, this guy, he could be just chilling on a beach or just making movies, or for lack of a better term, just chilling off of his previous success. But you turn on,
Royalties.
right, you turn on Netflix, he's like trying to find out about aliens or something like that. Then he's talking to a
Yeah.
sculptor. So at his heart, he's a curious guy.
Curious.
Right. And so I was like, man, you know what? I'm not Keanu Reeves, but I'm curious. Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I can't create an HOA.com. I've told multiple guests this. I can't do what you all do but my
Mm.
passion lies elsewhere. But the one thing I can
Right.
do is try to pick your brain and take those nuggets of success and say, how can I apply that to this? And then it becomes organic and it becomes authentic and it doesn't become something
Absolutely.
that you know, hey, Brandon, can I get you on the show because I really just want to get publicity? No, I really want to talk about your career and what you've
Right.
accomplished to talk to people to make something successful. So when they're driving in their car or when they're sitting in their kitchen, they can do it too.
Absolutely. And podcasting is one of the things that we teach in the Raving Referral system. There's 21 different co-marketing
Wow.
campaigns. How do we come together and help each other? And this was really, years ago before the proliferation of podcasts. But the beauty is you as a host get access to people that you wouldn't
Never,
ordinarily meet,
never would. Never would.
and you learn from people, and you're able to soak up all this words of wisdom that would take you years to gain otherwise. And you allow people like me to share our message. My personal mission is to uplift, inspire, and empower every person on the planet.
Right.
That's why I do these podcast interviews. Is I want to inspire people. If you're listening right now, I hope that you listen and you take
Right.
action. The biggest thing is most people listen and they don't take
Right.
action. But if you take action and you go after your dreams, you can accomplish anything. And so I appreciate people like you that are out there taking the time to lead. And we talked about this pre-show, right? Leadership is so
Right.
important these days.
Right.
And I think there's so much apathy out there where everybody's, not everyone, excuse
Right.
me, let me correct that. A lot of people are sitting back, allowing others to lead rather than getting in the arena.
Yep.
And that's where I honor people like you. I'm grateful for you doing this because it allows me to share my message, and hopefully together we can impact a lot more people.
I'm very honored about that. And, just briefly, it's also because people get jaded, right? Because I promise you, usually some of the highest viewing videos, it sometimes are not the person that sang a wonderful national anthem, or it's sometimes somebody who tripped and fell. And it's a funny, right? So
Yeah.
we gravitate towards things that sometimes bring us misery, right? And you have to really train your mind to navigate towards things that are positive and uplifting that make you happy and
Absolutely.
work towards good things. Because when you do that, being here, every person that I've talked to on this podcast, I've never had the quote unquote whining festival from successful people. You know what I
No,
mean?
no,
They're
no.
not up. So any complaint that I would have had, you'd be like, I came from divorce, I came from death, I came from suicide, potential suicide. I've talked to
Right.
veterans who had PTSD. And so you learn real quick where the Rubicon is of success and failure. And you're like, I'm going to put all these gripes to the side that maybe I thought I had, and life ain't so bad. You know what I mean?
It's all perspective. It's how you look at it, right? My wife likes to say we're all bruised fruit with the good side up,
Beautiful.
meaning that we present our best selves to the world. And I think you talked about social
Yeah,
media earlier, and that's so true, right? We're always showing the best parts of our lives. But here's the thing, in any situation, you have a choice.
absolutely.
You get to choose how you react and respond to whatever life event comes at you.
Yep.
And you can either choose that it's being done to you or being done for you,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
We can either be, oh, man, this is happening to me, and you can think about the negative implications of that, or you can be curious, like you talked about earlier, and man, I wonder what God's got planned here. I can't wait to see how this all turns
You
out.
know, and exactly the thing is about it is, you know, I think, and that's obviously another avenue to go down, but it's just like that's why I enjoy talking to people like yourself. You know, you're a CEO of multiple, you know, of a current company, serial entrepreneur, and here you are taking your time out to tell others that the message is out there. The secret sauce for success is being shared by multiple people. The question is not whether or not you're going to complain or whether you're going to take the nuggets that they're giving for free and start to work your mind in that direction. And I think that's why one of the reasons I created the show was to,
Yeah.
for lack of a better term, kick my own butt and listen to successful people because maybe I have some habits I need to kick. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Well, and as a business owner, you got to think about how do you get your word out to the world. Last week, I was up in Scottsdale and I was meeting with this podcast agency called Biggest Agency, and the CEO of this company for 5 years worked for Mr. Beast for 5 years, and so it was a fascinating conversation, right? Because we were sitting there talking about what he learned and what that experience was like, and he actually left Mr. Beast because he was the only unvaccinated person in the company. And Mr. Beast came to him and said, you either take the shot or you take a hike. And he's like, I'm out.
Right,
Right.
right.
And so that
Yeah,
was
yeah.
his decision. But during those 5 years, he learned so much and
Exactly.
saw so much. And so, we kind of flipped the script because we were hanging out for 3 hours up in his office, and I would just sort of interviewed him to find out and find, all that knowledge of wealth and information.
It's out there.
But we were talking about the fact that podcasts help you get your message to the world, and they really focus on the pre-production, the production, the post-production,
Mm-hmm.
and then the promotion. And that's where a lot of people don't really have that. How do they get their message out to the masses, right? That's why I do these. I focus on three things, right? I focus on partnerships, presentations, and podcasts. All of the business side, takes care of itself.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as getting the word out to the world, number one, it's partnerships. Who can I partner with that's already serving my perfect
Exactly.
prospect,
Exactly.
where I can add value to that company or that individual? And through them, they're endorsing me and providing that raving referral and talking about HOA.com or raving
Exactly.
referrals. And right. So that's how it works. But I want to be here to add value to you and your audience.
Right.
And what happens is people hear what I'm saying and then they reach out. So it's a
Wonderful.
great way to spread your message to the world.
And I think that, you know, obviously you've been, you know, infinitely successful and your time is very valuable. And the one thing that I'll take from this is that when you put your mind to something and you get in a good space mentally, great things happen for you. And I've had the honor and privilege of being able to
Mhm.
pick your brain. You know, I'm no expert in real estate, but at the same time, I know what a positive mindset can do to for clarity, for purpose, and to be willing to serve others. And one of the reasons I created this podcast was because there's enough bad things out there to pollute your mind, but there's good, successful stories to be told and things that can navigate. I didn't have the pleasure of being able to talk to somebody like you weeks ago until I started a podcast like this because again, it connects me to people like yourself.
Awesome. Well, Rashad, I hope this has been helpful for you and for your listeners. And, I hope the people that are listening will take action. The biggest challenge I have if you're listening right now is write down your goals, write at least 101 goals. It'll change your life. It'll help you get clear on exactly what you want. And you'll be amazed how quickly things materialize in your life.
Brandon Barnum, I appreciate you. And like I said, I can't wait to hear more about HOA.com and the other companies that you're going to be starting because I know you're not going to sit down.
No way, man. We're just getting started. Thanks, Rashad. Pleasure being with you, brother, and appreciate all you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, thank you.